Hello, my name is Natalie, and I am here to talk about this video essay that I made sometime over a year ago. Late August is when it went up of 2020, and it's been one I've been working on for a long, long time. I think I'd said in the lead up that I was working on it for about 3 years, and this is still to date my favorite video that I've made. It's the one I stand by the most. It's the one that I feel kind of most attached to, feel like I kind of still relate to a lot of the things that I've said in it. It still kind of encompasses how I perceive film these days, especially as sort of a personal connection. So I wanted to go through a commentary for it just because Mike Mills is finally back. We get Come On, Come On around the week that I am recording this in late November of 2021. So I feel like now is a great time to revisit this. Also, first of all, God, I look so different in these. This is, for reference, I recorded these maybe about like half a year, 9 months into like uh, being on HRT. So this is fun to revisit. Also, hearing some of my voice different subtleties because I had done voice training since recording this. But I think the main thing that I want to talk about in terms of talking about how this video came to be is that this first section here, where I'm talking about 20th Century Women as a video essay, kind of examining it from kind of a remove, is the baseline. This was where I started the essay, and this is kind of where I'd stopped for years. So for context, when I saw 20th Century Women in 2016, like that was when I was very heavily in my like making video essays, watching video essays, being very involved with that medium, sort of. And that was kind of the lens in which I watched it under, as being like, I don't recall ever seeing a narrative film kind of structured this way, having these kinds of deviations, these kinds of diversions into these larger topics and subjects and thematic ideas, concepts, philosophical, theoretical things that it's going into just within the fabric of the film, like intentionally so, referencing all these texts that are very clearly inspiring the construction of the film itself. And so that was kind of the thing that I latched onto most immediately, because at that point I was still pre-transition, still kind of viewing film from a remove, like emotionally speaking. So that was kind of where I was looking at it, was from a purely technical angle. And that was where I wrote the first kind of skeleton of this, where I mostly just kind of sketched out all these different ideas of how the film encompassed this idea. And from there, I kind of got stuck. Like, quite literally, I came up with this idea for this particular, like, slant on looking at 20th century women, I want to say early 2017. Like that was, I recall tweeting something out where I was like, I have like a great idea for a video essay. I'm not sure if anybody else has come up with this, but this is like an angle that I'm really interested to pursue. And like, I remember sketching out, probably 2017, 2018, the idea for this video essay, like right at the beginning, with all these different examples of like different scenes and examples of that style, that kind of filmic construction that was going on, to sort of support that idea. And then I kind of got stuck. I realized what I was doing. I was like, I mapped out a few examples, and I knew I was going to ramp up to the bit about Dorothea talking about her death, which I'll talk about when we get up to it, because that was the moment. God bless pre-transition testosterone me, where even though I was kind of in that state, I that scene did kind of break me in the theater, and I think that was kind of the first moment where I kind of had an emotional breakthrough and realized that films could give me that kind of emotional breakthrough. Because it's funny, like I watched the film knowing that I was trans, but also still kind of like heavily in denial about it and not really knowing what I wanted to do with myself, that sort of thing. So it's funny that that moment is the one that broke me. I also want to give a quick shout out. I passed before, but the little text intertitles that I have, the ones that appear over different pieces of media that I'm showing. So, for instance, it didn't pop up yet because I mostly just used the Koyaanisqatsi clip from the film, but like one of the prouder things I did in the construction of this video essay is track down what that font is and basically try to mimic it as much as I could, and getting that for the main title card, but also for when I throw in the clip from the documentary that's coming up in a couple minutes, which I'll point out when that happens. But yeah, no, the thing that I knew was I was going to talk about this kind of concept, the one that I'm bringing up here in this scene, where it's showing off all of these different kind of like stock footage, clips from other media, in order to support like the ideas that its characters are talking about, and how it like breaks from typical narrative tradition in these capacities to like really dive into the characters' interior lives, find out like what makes them tick, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, what I realized, because I knew I was going to be building up to the thing with Dorothea midway through the film, and then I kind of didn't know where to go with it. And that was where I kind of mapped it out. I had an idea of where it was going, and I kind of knew it was building there, but it felt like a deflation to just end it there, and I didn't know how to, like, conclude that idea. And so from that place, I kind of got stuck, and it was, as you'll see, the back half of this essay was kind of what happened when I had started transitioning and realized this runs deeper than I realized. This is me talking about these sorts of things is getting to a deeper sort of like heart about what I am trying to say about like this film's connection with me. But yeah, no, scenes like this one, the like kind of punk show montages are other ones that I'm talking about that were fascinating to me when I watched it, because it very clearly is like one of those moments where the film kind of escapes itself and gets into the scene at the time and the like ethos that's driving the characters. It makes it feel like the film is bigger than the constraints of the narrative itself, if that makes sense. That's something that fascinates me, and like since watching Beginners after posting this is something that like is fascinating to me about that too, because that's clearly a fixation that Mills has, and it makes his characters feel more lived in and really kind of actually like people rather than characters constructed for the film, because you feel like they're part of these bigger sort of movements and scenes outside of it. So yeah, this part here was one where I was kind of trying to encompass kind of what the film's narrative construction itself is saying, because like I think it is very revealing that the sort of order that these things go in as well, just because Dorothy obviously is the one that Jamie knows most, and then Julie he's been spending a lot of time with, and it's Abby who's the most guarded from the start of the film, the one who kind of keeps her like personal life and history a secret until like she and Jamie get closer, and so I think that's definitely a big element of it. So yeah, this part here, this Chronicle of a Summer clip that I'm playing, this is just a really nice touch of mine that I'm like still really proud of, because like that's another thing with this essay is I think part of why I feel prouder about this one than other ones is other than my approach to this is definitely a broader grasp of it. It's more than just, here, let me examine the technical things that are going on within the film. Let me examine the sort of like the things that the film is doing with what a film can be. And doing more of like examining the bigger sort of things. But like also those video essays were very much bare bones. A lot of them were done for class assignments, and I never really expected them to kind of take off or get the viewership that they did. And so those were always done on like deadlines. I was trying to hit like 2-week turnarounds on some of them because of just like assignment deadlines and trying to keep myself to a rigid schedule. And so those always kind of felt like they felt kind of rushed, and they felt very much like a college student with a rudimentary idea of like how to construct an essay clinically and like from a sort of academic remove is. And that's kind of like one of the things where, especially taking my time with this one and taking over 3 years to like bring it to fruition, was one of those things where I was like, I can slow down and I can like make actually like deliberate production decisions here, because like I don't have a deadline to work on. I don't have like a particular sort of, it felt like freeing to kind of work on this one for that way. And that sort of choice to kind of do things like the font mimicking, or in the moment that we'll get to in a few minutes, the kind of time-lapse stuff that I recorded, is one of those things where I was like, if I'm talking about this film in the guise of a video essay, I think the best possible way to go about it is to construct this essay in the same way as the film, because I'm viewing these things as very connected, as very kind of joined at the hip. But yes, this is the one where when I saw this in the theater the first time, it did like very much break me, and was one of the things where it did stun me, because I've never seen a film do this, of stopping itself midway through, being like, yep, this character is going to die. We'll give you her entire kind of interiority as she is describing to you her place in time, kind of feeling out of it, where she will be past where the film ends, having this like kind of almost omniscient knowledge of where her fate is going to lead her. And it's one that's haunted me, primarily because it does kind of break through emotionally. It does kind of get to the emotional core of what the film is encompassing, of really sort of picking apart what one's place in time is, and where one's kind of like how one can resound through the eras, like the impact one leaves. And that was a big thing that I was getting into in the back part of the essay, and that I realized after like really ruminating on this particular scene as like where I had stopped in the essay, where I kind of had trouble continuing. I was sort of thinking about it and breaking it apart as well, what does this mean? And like the conclusion that I came to was, as I talk about in the back half of the essay, well, this is really kind of getting to the core of getting to the multifaceted examination of what a woman's life and the impact and all the different things that it can hold across eras, across generations, to the people that mattered to her are. And like, once I realized that was the thing that kind of cracked open the rest of the film for me. That was the thing where I thought to myself, this is bigger than I realized. This is me kind of making sense of who I am and how I kind of conducted my own sort of gender exploration, my own understanding of myself as a woman, because that's another key thing that I think is it was something that, like, as I was ruminating on the essay that I had formed in the film, every time I went back and revisited it post-transition, I was thinking to myself, what is this saying about kind of how I've constructed my own womanhood? And, like, how are these kind of asides, these monologues, these narration points, how are they kind of unveiling the sort of nuances, the hidden parts of these women and their lives, the things that they kind of construct themselves by. And that's kind of where I ultimately was like, well, shit. the like beginning of this essay actually is salvageable, because like that was one of the things I had a crisis about, was like, is this usable? Is this format going to mesh with my own reckoning of the film? And that's when I realized, wait a minute, the format that the film goes through is why I've latched onto it. It is entirely why I kind of have this emotional impact. Because like I say at one point, if this film were a very kind of traditional narrative affair, not having these asides, not having these kind of omniscient breaks like Dorothea's having in this moment, not really kind of getting beyond its characters for the context of the social climate that they exist in, or the cultural circumstances, I feel like it wouldn't get as deep into what makes these women, what makes them who they are, and what makes them feel like a place of belonging or satisfaction or uh, any kind of fulfillment. And that was like the key that kind of made me realize, oh, so the thing that I noticed the first time I watched this had a deeper meaning that impacted me as a person. And that is where we get into this back half of the video that we are about to get to in a matter of seconds as I'm looking over the scrubber bar. And it's this back half that I think I really want to talk about, especially because it was one of those things where the little aside, the on-camera bit that we're about to get to, was kind of a breaking point for me. And I kind of wrote it out as a series of, like, I believe at first just kind of questions to myself about, like, basically kind of interrogating why I felt the way I did, why I wrote this. I think I wrote it when I was, like, completely stuck and not really knowing where to continue on, and kind of mostly writing it for myself as, like, questions to ask myself. And it became the sort of thing where, upon reflection, I was like, this is a good line of questioning to open this essay up and to, like, pivot it into something else. And that's kind of where I fell with all of that. So yeah, so let's get into this back half, which I just, God, yeah, no, this back half means a lot to me. I want to also say, fun fact, completely unintentional, but I posted this essay less than well, it was a day before my 1-year HRT anniversary, which made it extremely fortuitous for how it, like, reflected how I felt and, like, what was on my mind. But yeah, so this back half, it's almost kind of a reckoning of, like, me figuring out what even brought me to films and wanted me to feel like to take a deeper thought, a deeper look at, like, why films and filmmaking, like, resounded with me in the first place. Because, like I said, a lot of where I was in 2015, 2016, when I was making the first videos that I posted, it was a lot of kind of a remove. It was me admiring it, me, like, admiring the craft of filmmaking and, like, studying it in an academic sense, because I did go to college for film studies, but not entirely understanding what made them kind of resound with me on an emotional level, like why they clicked with me on a personal front. And so a lot of this back half is kind of me reckoning with the idea of, well, what does it mean to do this? What does it mean for me to have this impulse to, like, really examine what makes a film hold impact with me? And I think that's also why I've had trouble, like, say, doing another one of these videos after this is a film that, like, really, really personally lands with me. And I feel like I don't have the impulse to do it unless it is something on this kind of personal level. Like, doing something just to do it or to talk about the sort of technical aspects of it doesn't quite interest me in the same way that it used to, just because I'm a completely different person than I was when I was making those videos. And that was kind of where I moved into thinking about things in a gender aspect, which is also perfect timing with this pivot here. So this, first I want to talk about this time lapse, because this was the sort of thing that kind of really kind of hit me when I realized, A, I'm kind of running out of footage for the particular thing that I'm thinking of here, and also was like, it is fun to mimic the sort of ideas in this video. So the thing that I was doing here was, at this point, I was editing the video. I had this voiceover. I knew I had, like, a bit of a gap here. So what I was doing was basically filming myself as I was editing and being like, it would be cool to mimic some of the time lapses in that, like, Crisis of Confidence sequence, where you kind of see these characters performing mundane tasks as them kind of, as synecdoche for them kind of searching for their meaning and their place. And that was kind of, I felt like that was a perfect analog for this, because, like, a lot of this video essay is me searching for my own, like, meaning and place and trying to find purpose in, like, what I'm doing. And so that's kind of a thing where I am going through and kind of inserting myself in a way of like drawing those comparative lines. And like, oh god, that one there where I have relief over finishing the essay. That is literally the exact moment I finished editing it, that part where the time lapse slows down. But yeah, no, this is the sort of thing. One other thing I'm interested in talking about is kind of, I love showing these three characters side by side because they're all such different women, and this gets to the point that I'm trying to say here is I really relate to them in different ways, and I've related to every time I've watched this film since it came out, and especially since I've transitioned a different one or all of them for different reasons. Mostly because one of the first things that I did that I realized in my kind of like crisis of transness early on, pre-transition, was latching on to Greta Gerwig's performance as Abby, and especially the way that like she looks aesthetically, the sort of like preoccupation she has, just because, as I mentioned, I am very into things like no wave and post-punk and new wave, like all the different styles of music that she's introducing Jamie to. And god, that hair color is so fucking good. But it was one of those things where like when I kind of had a crisis of like how I wanted to present myself and live in the world, like that was one of the things I latched onto was there are that image as kind of an idea of womanhood, and that was one of the first things that kind of cracked it open for me as being like, I would like to like be a woman like this. And kind of as I went along with watching the film more and more, it became more of a thing where I was latching on to kind of, as aging, Dorothea's place in the world, and feeling kind of out of place or hanging on to the things from her past that are kind of emblematic of a time that has passed. And with Julie, these sorts of things about kind of sexual liberation and feeling kind of secure with my sexuality, because that was a thing that pre-transition I didn't quite feel. I felt very sheltered and insecure and not really sure of what to do with myself. And so that was a thing where, as kind of transition went along and I found out more about myself through that process, because that's the thing about transition, it becomes this sort of aspect of continual discovery, because you are unlocking new different emotional spaces of your brain that you were unable to before, and learning more about yourself, how you want to carry yourself in the world. And so that was a thing where this film almost kind of became a Rosetta Stone. For every time I would come back to it, I would recognize a different part in myself, or a part of myself I wanted to bring out, a different part of womanhood that I wanted to be or encompass. So that's the thing that was like very, very big and pivotal to me. And that's kind of where I got to this kind of part in the essay where I'm talking about the multiplicities of women, and like how it's showing me about myself, how it's I love the bit where I also talk about the like very end of the film, and it's talking about these women kind of having impacts on each other and then parting ways, leaving different spaces of time, because that's a big thing that's like happened with me both before and after making this essay, of sort of moving from city to city, going from place to place. I love returning to this like same image that I had previously, by the way. I think that's a nice touch. But yeah, like as somebody who has spent most of her adult life kind of living in different cities around different people, it's one of those things where a big thing that I've kind of reckoned with is like parting ways with people, going on different paths and different places, and forming new bonds, new connections, but also kind of keeping people close in your heart for the impact that they've had on you. And that's a big thing that I've had. And I love this ending too. I really kind of feel like when I was putting this together and got to this ending, like it was one of those things where I looped it back a few times, these final lines, and was just, I realized I made it work because it was still moving me. Especially that final delivery there is so good. But yeah, no, that is a big thing behind what really had an impact for me, was thinking about these different places and people that had kind of been in my life. And that's kind of why I wanted to return to this. The video has ended, but especially one of the biggest things as a bit of like behind the scenes stuff here is uh, for instance, when making this video, I was in one relationship, stumble across through searching while conducting research for this video, somebody else who had this same impact from 20th Century Women, somebody who it had really kind of helped start her on her journey to like accepting herself as a trans woman. And she named herself Abby. I started kind of following her online. We ended up conversing, and now we live together and are dating. And it's kind of one of those things where thinking about this sort of thing, this kind of impact that this film has had and continues to have on me, where every single time I come back to it and think about it and think about like what it means for the people in my life, the kind of places I've been, the places I'll be going, the women who have left an impact on me and will continue to leave an impact on me no matter where they go, and my own continual sort of discovery of womanhood that is still continuing to this day, because that is the thing about transition, is it is never really a like set and done affair. Like that is the thing that I'm realizing the more and more my transition goes on, is it is something that continues. It is something that I'm constantly learning about myself. And that's where I'm really thankful for making this essay where I did, because I feel like it's really kind of a time capsule in some ways of like where I am in this place in my transition and like where I'm going to be going forward. Because it does kind of very much feel like the person I was at this stage in like my own discovery of womanhood. And it does feel like in a lot of ways it's presaging the sort of pathways I've been carving and will continue to carve in my own transition. So yeah, that is pretty much everything that went into this video essay. I don't know if this will be coherent or interesting to anybody, but I thought it would be interesting to revisit it. I've had the urge to kind of go back to this since I'd released it, and kind of do post-mortem on kind of how it came to be, just because this essay took the longest out of any essay that I've ever had. This is the one that I still feel proudest of, and who knows if I'll ever do one again, but in the meantime, if not, this is a really great one to end on, if it is. So yeah, thank you. I hope you appreciated this, you appreciate the original essay, and thank you for tuning in. Bye.